Welcome back, folks. This is Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. And we're back. The Yankees, of course, this whole thing with the rainouts, they could just put a freaking roof over it, and then we don't have two doubleheaders in a week.
I'm so tired. I'm so tired of these doubleheader splits. We do more splits than a freaking gymnast. It's so obnoxious. And it makes total sense, doesn't it? You see game one's lineup, all systems go. They throw all the weapons out there, and then they go into game two, seemingly looking at it like, okay, we threw out our best guys. Hopefully we can steal game two, which is ironic considering there's 45 games left of the season, and you're a game back in the division to a really good Baltimore team. Great, not great, good Baltimore team. So disappointing. But I wanted to start off this show by mentioning Carlos Rodon's performance today. He's been brilliant. I know you were actually bringing up a stat. His ERA since the break is 2.22. He's walking guys, but that's what Rodon does. He's not a high control guy, but what we're paying $160 million for him to miss bats, and he does that. Carlos Rodon right now is missing bats. His slider looks really good. He's not just flipping that cutter all game like we saw in the first half of the season, and he looks pretty good. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm actually pleasantly surprised at Carlos Rodon, because I will tell you, about a month ago when he was really hitting that skid, we were definitely pumping the brakes, and I wouldn't say freaking out, Jake, but if Rodon looked the way he did a month ago, the Yankees couldn't go anywhere, clearly, right? The version of Gerrit Cole you saw a couple weeks ago, hell, and even in his last start, we can't go anywhere with that type of performance. So to see Rodon like this, I mean, Texas isn't great this year, but shutting anybody out in your performance is all we need, right? And we needed some form of length. I thought we got that.
I agree. And I thought, I was really impressed with the way, first off, he was able to battle through it. He threw 110 pitches. That'll be a topic. Don't worry, guys. We all saw Gerrit Cole leave the game with 90 pitches.
Should I be worried he threw 110 pitches?
I don't know. His arm might fall.
Sarcasm, by the way.
But
just in case.
No, I thought Rodon really was able to battle through. I mean, he had 5 walks, and people will look at that as a negative, but I think it's more impressive that he battled through that. And I don't really care if you're walking guys, if you're not giving up runs. I can't stress that enough. Like, remember when Heel would just like walk guys and people complain, be like, he didn't give up runs and he pitched 7 innings. Why are you complaining?
This is the job of run prevention. That is the job. Like, of course, if you ask Carlos Rodon, were you trying to walk 5 guys today? No, he wasn't. But neither is Blake Snell. And that was an approach that a lot of people were perfectly okay with. Remember, if we had gotten Blake Snell, he was one of those pitchers that's like, yeah, I don't really care if I walk the 7 or the 9 hitter in your lineup. I'm eventually going to get off the field with a donut. That's my job. And that's true. Now, of course, 5 walks is part of the reason why you only get 5 2/3. So we're not thrilled to see 5 2/3, but I'll tell you what, 5 2/3 is much better than what we've been getting from Stroman and Cortez.
Oh, yeah.
Where guys are coming out in the 3rd inning. Those games are over in the 2nd inning. And you're asking a lot of me as a Yankees fan to sit around and watch that, right? So this is much better than what we're accustomed to right now. And it's part of the reason why the Yankees could actually play a baseball game and not feel like the game was over in inning number 4.
Yeah, I felt like, that first game, I've said this so many times on this show, you can tell when the Yankees are going to win and you can tell when they're going to lose. Today, you just knew that they were going to win the first game. They came out, firing on all cylinders, and they didn't really even use the long ball until the 8th inning. It was a Giancarlo Stanton home run, but it was Jazz Chisholm that hit it. And you know what I mean by the Giancarlo Stanton home run? He'll go 0 for 5, and then he'll hit that home run, and like at the very end of the game, it's a solo shot.
The most useless home run ever. Which, by the way, like Giancarlo's been. Let's not forget, he doesn't only hit useless homers because he was great, right? He's brilliant in that COVID. Yeah, in that COVID postseason, he was awesome. Glaber, he was also incredible. But yeah, to your point, Giancarlo can hit some of the most useless home runs you ever saw. That was one of them. And it's pretty funny.
Yeah, so Chisholm, of course, hit that useless home run because, you really needed that extra 8 instead of the 7.
What'd you think about the celebration, by the way?
I love anytime Chisholm hits a home run or does anything. I told you that guy is going to thrive in New York. He he is exactly what I was expecting. He's been exactly what I expected. I'm not even kidding you. And I understand that's kind of hard to believe. I mean, he now has the most home runs in Yankee history in their first 12 games. That's a lot of players. That's even more than, of course, Matt Carpenter. I mean, people were comparing him to like Babe Ruth, and he has more home runs than Matt Carpenter's first 12 games. So
yeah, people forget how good that opening series was on the road, because we kind of forget what Chisholm did in that first series. Because you just assume, okay, Yankee Stadium, okay, now what is he going to do as a Yankees in pinstripes now? But that opening series was brilliant. I mean, he was leaving the yard. Remember, there were points in the game we were playing, I think it was Philadelphia, where we said this game's over. Jazz Chisholm essentially just carried us to a win. Yeah. So that kind of goes to show you how special he was. And I'm kind of with you, by the way, about the celebration. I know some people are going to be like, act like you've been there, or, hey, scoreboard. I get it, because earlier this year, I did talk about, hey, the Toronto Blue Jays, you're throwing a coat on in the dugout. You're down 10-2, kind of ridiculous. So I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't. I think where I'm going to land on this is that if you're playing for my team, then I'm cool with it. I just want effort, right? I've been asking for effort all year. You're giving me effort. Jazz Chisholm's giving me effort.
Oh, you're talking about the home run he hit in the second game.
Yes.
Because there were people complaining about him celebrating on the
home
run.
That's what I'm bringing up.
No, people complained about the first home run in the first game when they were up 8-0. It was like, oh, the game was over anyway.
No, ignore those buffoons. At least let's address the actual
elephant in a small closet where there are no microphones or any Twitter of any kind. Okay.
No, we're not going to address that one. You're up 8-0. Your teammates are in a good mood. I don't give a rip about that. I don't care if a guy swings 3-0, up 7-0, hits a homer, and other team's pissed. That doesn't matter to me. But where I'll address the situation is something where it's a little more realistic. You're down a ton, you hit a homer, and then you're doing a Euro step, right? Euro step celebration.
My one thing I'll say is it's the 8th inning. Okay. I get it. They're down 9-3. He hits the home run, makes it 9-4. At that point, you're doing anything you can to energize your team. That's how I look at it. That's why, to me, like when Siri did that, I was like, there's no energizing. You guys are losing this game. There's no chance. This is back-to-back home runs. They're starting to feel it in the dugout. They're like, hey, they're doing the thing, which kind of looks a little weird when you see the scoreboard and but I get that. Okay. It's no different than, it's really no different than when you have somebody who goes crazy for a touchdown in football and they're down by 2 possessions and you're like, this game's over. Well, we've already learned that no lead is safe in any sport. We've seen incredible comebacks. And by the way, against the Rangers, when I was a little kid, I remember the Yankees coming back from 9 down and they won 10-9 in the final inning. So look, I've seen crazy things before. That's just sports. And I do think, and I think people have to understand this because these are actual human beings that, have real emotion, right? And I don't mean that in a lame way. I mean that as in a positive, like, hey, what would you do in that situation? What is better for your team? You hit a home run. Is it better to just trot the bases and look like you're annoyed that you hit home run? Or is it better to actually act like, hey, we can make something of this back to back? Big G just went yard. He took Judge to the plate with him.
Well, what was the situation in that game? So it was 9-4 in what inning exactly?
The 8th inning.
Right. So the way I look at it, in my estimation, I know teams have come back from that score before, but the game seemed over in my opinion. But let me say this about it.
It did, definitely.
I think, in my judgment on it, and this is where I stand, is it's based on how good of a player you are. If you ask the average viewer who's going to watch our show tonight, and you ask them, hey, go ask your significant other if they know who Jose Siri is. Do you know who he is and what he's? Do you think he's a 300 hitter in the big leagues? Do you think he's a pitcher? Is he a reliever?
I like
that. What they would say?
I like that.
Who the hell is Jose Siri? They don't know who that is.
No.
Okay. So when I don't know who you are heading into a series, and you're hitting a homer in a game that's not a big homer, because if you're a nobody and you hit a huge homer that dictates the outcome of the game, I don't care essentially who you are, you can celebrate that moment with your teammates, no problem. But in an 8-0 game, 9-4 game, 9-2 game, and you're a player that my mom, my grandma, no one knows who you are. I hardly know who you are, and you're hitting 203 to be exact. Yeah, you don't get to celebrate in situations like that, or in the situation you saw Jazz Chisholm celebrate in, hitting a homer to make it 9-4. Jazz Chisholm is a player who was on the show, in the MLB The Show cover. People know who he is.
Know who he is. Yeah.
He very well, you can consider him disappointing considering his talent coming through the minor leagues. But I will say, Jazz Chisholm has still done enough in this league to do that. So if Ronald Acuna Jr. was in a situation, obviously far superior player, if he did this, it wouldn't bother me. But if I was seeing a player who just got called up from the Braves organization, I have no idea who it was, and then he's flipping his bat in a 9-2 game, yeah, I'm going to wonder what this kid's on, right? What drugs he on that I need? So that's where I stand on this situation. Didn't bother me a bit. I'm sure we're going to have listeners who are bothered by it. I get it, right? I totally get it. You're hitting a homer. Frankly, no one will remember. So why are we doing it? Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Chisholm had a lot to feel good about too. That's a career high. Both of them are career highs. He now hits 20 home runs. So the Yankees have 3 players with 20 home runs: Judge, Soto, and Chisholm. And Stan hit his 19th, so he'll almost be at 20 home runs. So, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but yeah, no, I agree with that whole idea. I love watching Chisholm play, though. I mean, that dude is fun to watch. I thought I'm the only one that apparently noticed this. I don't know if I mentioned this on our last show, but I think I'm the only one that noticed it on Twitter because no one said anything. He went up to Otis, the song Otis that Derek Jeter went up to. He's now done that twice. And that's
bold.
It's very bold. Like, I give him a lot of respect.
I would not do that.
I give him a lot of props because you have to back that shit up. Like, that's Jeter's song. People know that was Jeter's song, And he also he walks up to a few different songs. So I think there's a chance whoever's doing the songs just gets them confused.
I ask Jazz Chisholm, can he go out to excuse my French, Move Bitch, Get Out the Way from Ludacris? Because that was my dad's walk-up song in 2004. So,
really?
Yes, it really was. And people, I'm not kidding you. I'm not joking you. I'd be in the family room and there would be people in the family room who'd be like, hey, could you potentially ask your dad to change his song? I was like, do you not like Ludacris? They're like, no, I just think it's inappropriate. I'm like, you are not serious right now. I am
most rap
12 years old.
Like,
I'm 12 years old. I'm like, your husband's a multi-millionaire to play baseball, and you're coming to their 12-year-old son to complain about his walk-up song. It was ridiculous. But by the way, Jake, since we're talking about things we noticed, did you notice that Austin Wells was not in Game 2's lineup? We've actually introduced this topic, and we're going to dive into how ridiculous it is, of course. But
it's nails on a chalkboard, honestly.
Yeah, you've talked about the inability of Aaron Boone, who we've tried to give credit when it's due. We've done that on this show.
Yeah.
But when you have a player who, in our estimation, has kind of established himself as that third dude in the lineup, and he happens to be playing catcher, which is the most demanding physical position on the field, right? Like, there's no doubt about that in baseball. So the Yankees have just done yeoman's work when it comes to finding ways to get Austin Wells off the field and just keep him fresh, which my opinion on this, Jake, and this is an opinion I'm going to die on this hill. There's no reason to protect catchers because my opinion is that catchers don't last 20 years anyway. So this idea that you're going to have a player that's a catcher and you're going to have him on his feet one day, he's going to play game 1, we're going to sit him down for game 2. Or you're going to play a Friday night game, and then Saturday morning, you're going to get him off his feet. He won't be there in 12 years, more than likely. And I asked you before we went live, Jake, to bring up really your 3 favorite catchers of this generation, really a recent history. And you gave me some pretty big names, right? You listed me Buster Posey, Yadier Molina, and who was the other one?
JT Realmuto.
Realmuto. Thank you. Here's what's so interesting about these 3 gentlemen who absolutely had successful careers in the big leagues, right? Joe Mauer, another guy, successful career in the big leagues. What's so crazy to me, not one success story that you'll name was any of these players sitting one day and playing the next, playing one day and sitting the next. You never saw it. Not from one of these guys. The only time you saw it was later in their career where the bat really could get going, and then they flipped to DH because they were just like, yeah, we want their bat in there, which, by the way, is the whole point we're making. Put him at DH. If his bat is developed, which Austin Wells clearly is developed offensively, you need to find a way to put his bat in there, but they haven't. And so I looked at it. I want to make sure I'm not wrong on this, right? With this Buster Posey and Yadier Molina projection of my memory, because I don't want to rely on my memory. So I look at the stats. Here's Buster Posey, games played, 2012, right? Pretty memorable season. They won a title. He played 148 games. 2013, again, 148 games. The following season, did he take games off? Did they try to get him off his feet? No. He played 147 games. The next season, 150, 146, 140 following that. So you're talking about a good 6-year window where he's playing almost every single day, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the 3 success stories that we can really name you. Now, the other 2, do we really think they're outliers? Not at all. The stats, they're right in front of me. I'm not going to list them. They tell the exact same story. You use the bullets you have in the gun with the catcher while they're there. You play your catcher when you have the opportunity. You're not going to baby Austin Wells because Trevino's out and you don't have a safety net. You're not going to be able to just play him today, sit him tomorrow, and then go outrun Baltimore. You don't get to do all 3 things. So you need to figure out who's my best players, play them, and then if players unfortunately get hurt, you deal with the consequences later. The Yankees right now, in my opinion, this is my humble opinion, are doing too much when it comes to protecting players from injury. At some point or another, you just need to allow a player who is 25 years old to go out there and have an opportunity to perform.
I couldn't agree more. I am going to make fun of you real quick though, because it's funny. You're like saying how, I don't care about the catchers because they don't last that long. All I heard was Ivan Drago's, if he dies, he dies.
If he dies, he dies. And people will take this and say, oh my gosh, like it's so reckless, right? Put him in bubble wrap. People say this all the time. They say this to me all the time. They'll send me DMs on Twitter. I don't respond to them, but they'll send me DMs on Twitter and be like, man, I wish we could just bubble wrap. Let's get Soto off his feet tomorrow. And I'm like, off his feet? The best players, any of the best players, I don't care who you are in the comment section, list me the best baseball players of all time. Not one of them. Not one sat around every other day. Not one of them had to sit down once a week. Not one. There's not one player. You can't name my dad. You can't name Barry Bonds. You can't any of them. Not one position player. Pudge Rodriguez, right? What are we saying here? These are Major League Baseball players. We're playing baseball. Is it hard to play 7 days a week? 100%. Absolutely. Which is why, Jake, we've left the caveat. If a player feels like physically he can't get up to play the next day or it's really wearing on him, give him a day. We totally get it. I totally understand it.
I have no issue. I have no issue with guys getting a day. I have an issue with guys getting days after off days. Like
after rainouts and after delays. What are we saying?
2 rainouts this week and an off day. I mean, like what?
They were playing ping pong in the clubhouse. You mean to tell me they can't go play?
3 off days this week. 2 created by rainouts, but 3 off days this week. Why is anybody sitting? Why everyone should be available? Everyone. I wanted to, because you mentioned Austin Wells, I wanted to bring up something. I wanted to bring this to your attention. You might hurl, okay? He has 79 games played this year. You said there are 45 games left. He is projected to play 108 games on the pace he's at. 108.
How does this not make everybody listening spit up? How's that possible?
Like, that's just not acceptable.
Which you were absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head here. You saw
Thanks, Gary.
Austin Wells. Austin Wells is a player that you saw projecting as a maybe not a Jorge Posada, but a player who's not just a glove behind the plate, not just a guy you can rely to catch. He's a guy who does both. Someone who's a threat on both sides of the ball. Austin Wells is that now. We've established it. Okay.
Yeah.
And he can get better. But this is, as the bare minimum, Austin Wells is a 250 hitter with pop, who's an excellent catcher. How many dudes in Major League Baseball are a 250 hitter, right? So an above average offensive guy with above average pop, who a lot of people project to hit 20 homers. He's not just a glove. Because, by the way, Posada wasn't elite behind the plate. He wasn't. He didn't have a cannon. He wasn't great at blocking. His framing was to be desired, right? Guys love playing with him, but was he the best catcher I've ever seen? Was he Pudge Rodriguez? Not even close, not even approaching it. So he was really a bat that was catching.
Yeah.
Austin Wells is not that. Austin Wells is a dude who analytically, if you want to talk about analytics here, let's do it. Austin Wells, for all the people who said Trevino, the reason he's on the field is because of his framing, go look at Austin Wells' framing. He's right up there. He might not be second in the league.
95th percentile.
95th percentile. Right? And this is a dude, by the way, 95th percentile. First. He's got a cannon. He can run.
Cannon.
So this is a player.
94th percentile walk percentage. That's crazy.
He played 108 games by choice, not because of injury. That's a problem. And that's poor coaching. That's all that is.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Austin Wells' savant page is getting more and more exciting by the day. But I want to actually bring this to your attention. Speaking of the savant page, his 2023 savant. Now, he only had 70 at-bats. Hear me out. But the thing I found so interesting with Austin Wells is that, like, his expected batting average last year was 283. He had red all over with OBA, batting average, expected slugging at 584, and a barrel percentage of 14, which is in the 90th percentile. Okay. His K percentage was high, like in a good way. I mean, this is a guy that comes from an organization that has desperately, we talk about Derek Jeter all the time. We always talk about, oh, we got to find the replacement for the captain. Well, you did. Aaron Judge. He just doesn't play shortstop, but he's replaced Derek Jeter and then some, right? No, there's never been anybody to replace Jorge Posada. I don't care what you say about Brian McCann. I don't care what you say about Francisco Cervelli. I don't care what you say about Higashioka or Gary Sanchez. Do not care. I don't. Austin Wells has a chance to actually do it. And it's probably the most underrated thing about the Yankees organization. This has been an organization that has constantly drafted catchers that could not catch. Gary Sanchez, Siegler. Dude, the list goes on, right? Austin Romine. He was a good catcher, but he couldn't hit. So they had a lot of those guys. Well, now Austin Wells is a two-way catcher. Should I have to say two-way catcher? No. But unfortunately, like tight ends in the NFL, there are not many tight ends in the NFL that are really good at receiving and are really good at blocking, right? Very few and far between. No different with catcher. There are not a lot of guys that are great behind the plate and that are great with the bat in hand. And Austin Wells is becoming a great catcher in this league. And since I would say June, in mid-June, we'll say, Austin Wells is a top 3 catcher in the sport right now. I don't think.
What did Trevino happen to do, by the way, in mid-June? What would you say he was doing about mid-June?
Well, he got hurt.
So if he got hurt, because think of it this way, and this is the point I really want to bring home. Because if you ask, if Aaron Boone was sitting here right in front of us and you said, what is the meaning of this? Why is it that a player who analytically was off the charts last year, right? Short sample size. So we're going to move on to 2024. 2024, his savant page again is a wet dream. It's incredible. And not only is it about savant, it's about stats. All the back of the baseball card numbers, those are excellent as well. So if that's the case, what's the meaning of Jose Trevino splitting time with Austin Wells? And this is what he would say. And I promise you he'd say this. He'd say, well, at the time, Jose Trevino was swinging a hot bat. And we say, okay. But when he wasn't, which it wasn't like Jose Trevino just stopped hitting 2 weeks before he got hurt. No,
it was
Jose Trevino was off a cliff offensively.
Like 290 to 230 overnight.
He was hitting 230, but here's the crazy part. For those of you who watch our show, I know you remember the series. When we went and played Boston on the road, we found something out about Jose Trevino. And what was that? That was that he couldn't throw.
And anyone could run on him.
Right when that happened, he started falling off a cliff offensively. Not a moment before, after it. And you actually mentioned on the show, I can see that happening because there's a ton of pressure on him offensively now to make up for his arm. And it's exactly what happened. He fell off a cliff offensively. Defensively, he was putting a huge emphasis. People were running on him. Once you establish that to be the case, and you have a player who, Jake, you just described as a two-way catcher, the two-way catcher should be starting every day. And when he needs a day off, and you want Jose Trevino, who's still a fine catcher analytically, you catch Trevino and you let Austin Wells DH. You don't let a two-way player just go sit down next to Aaron Boone in the dugout and waste his talent where it may not have been the difference maker today, but you don't know when you build a lineup who the difference makers are going to be. You build the best lineup possible with the healthy players available. And if you don't do that, you're failing our organization. It's that simple.
No, absolutely. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, you know, I think it's kind of, you know, maybe people will say this is unfair, but, you know, when we talk about things like, you know, the punt lineup, right? They haven't had a legit punt lineup in a while. They are a better
These
team,
lineups are comparable.
But today was kind of like a punt lineup in the closest thing that they could get on their roster to being a punt lineup in game 2. Taking Wells out, putting in LeMahieu. Now, I understand why they do it. LeMahieu's better against lefties, and Ben Rice is, frankly, like, he has no plate appearances against lefties. Like, they gave up after 27 at-bats, so his batting average is like 112, and we're left to just be like, yeah, he's terrible against lefties, but it's like, well, Aaron, you haven't really given him a chance now, have you? So
he's like 1 for 11. So yeah, can you really? Mean, by the way, here's the funniest part about that. Let's use Giancarlo Stanton as a perfect example. Yeah. They tell me that Ben Rice can never hit against lefties ever because they say his numbers, his lefty-righty splits are just, it's so drastic. We just can't make it happen. Well, then how is it that you can pinch hit Giancarlo Stanton off the bench, whose career like a 040 hitter as a pinch hitter, and you don't use that 50 at-bat sample size against Giancarlo Stanton? You just roll with the player. But then Ben Rice is a player that you just don't give an opportunity to because he showed you in 9 at-bats that he can't do something. I will never understand how you can tell me you're using like a short sample size and you'll pretend 50 at-bats is just not enough to draw a conclusion about a player. But then another player gets 7 at-bats and you're like, yeah, he can't do that.
Yeah, it's wicked frustrating. It really is. And I mean, look, you know, I understand it's not going to be easy. You're trying to win a World Series and all that. I get that. But Ben Rice, you should have learned a lot from Austin Wells. Ben Rice is following in the exact same footsteps as Austin Wells, except he got to essentially get called up earlier than Wells did, you know, because of injury. But it goes back to the injury. Wells wouldn't even be the go-to starter if Trevino didn't get hurt, you know. And like you've always brought up with Rizzo, Rizzo didn't get hurt. Yeah, if Rizzo didn't get hurt, Ben Rice wouldn't even be here. So not to say like Ben Rice is tearing the cover off the ball. He's not. But he's also, the batting average doesn't really speak to what he's actually doing. And I do want to make that clear. But I also want to point out something. The Yankees are 4-13 against left-handed starting pitching at home this season. That's the worst in the majors. And I have a theory that it's not that the Yankees don't have the proper players for this. I think Boone does too much with his lefty lineup. I think he gets way too carried away. I don't like the idea of just switching around your leadoff hitter. If it's Verdugo, stick with Verdugo. If it's Torres, stick with Torres. If you want to go back to Ben Rice or Volpe, just stick with them. Stop making this a tilt-a-whirl. I'm so tired of like 8 different, combinations.
There are a lot of combinations. He
So
acts like
annoying.
This is a Rubik's Cube. You'll have a lefty out there, and then now as podcasters, we have to justify, so the reason with the lefty,
I refuse.
You can expect to see DJ tomorrow, but maybe not in the 9 spot. But no, hold on a second. DJ went 2 for 3 last weekend against this exact same pitcher, so we're going to move DJ to the 6th spot. It's like, guys.
You know what they might as well do? They might as well just play DJ LeMahieu at leadoff. Because hear me out when I say this, because I don't really fully believe it, but when you hear Aaron Boone constantly say, yeah, he's figuring it out. We really think if you believe that, if you really think DJ's about to go back to what he was doing, why is he not leading off like he used to be? Why?
It's because they don't actually believe what they're saying.
Exactly.
They don't. Just put the same lineups out there. And if something is not working over any extended period of time, the players should be able to know where they're going to be hitting tomorrow. And Boone will tell you, my players kind of know their situation. Really? Do they? Because I've been podcasting. We've done 100+ shows. I have no idea who's going to be hitting 5th tomorrow. I have no clue. I have no clue if Volpe is going to play. Like if they're going to tell me.
Might.
Right. I have no
there's no
idea.
way to know for sure.
No, I know Austin Wells is going to catch tomorrow morning. The reason they're going to tell me, it's that simple. They're going to tell me, Austin Wells, he's going to catch because the 10 a.m. game tomorrow, we didn't want him to catch in this game. Brilliant. Yeah, we totally get it. But he should have been DHing. So I can't even have any clue what they're doing with their lineup until I just see it written down. Give us some level of consistency, because once you do that, I mean, hell, the only guys who have any consistency of where they're being used right now is Judge, Stan, and Chisholm. Well, who are the 3 guys? And Wells, whenever he's in the lineup. Wouldn't you know, those are the 4 guys who are giving us.
I mean, the last 18 games, Austin Wells is hitting 344. He has a 952 OPS. Okay. There are only a few catchers that have a better average than that since the All-Star break. Now, Gary Sanchez does. He's only played 9 games, so I'm not going to count him. But Gabriel Moreno has played 14 games. He's hitting 356, but he doesn't have as good of an OPS. Right.
Okay.
Then you would look Yainer Diaz on Houston, 372. He's got over 1,000 OPS. Right.
Incredible.
Very, very good. Caratini also on Houston, hitting 385 in 11 games, also over 1,000 OPS.
Oh wow! So they're splitting time just like we are, except they have 2 guys who actually are hitting.
Yeah, that's the difference there. That's the difference. If Trevino was hitting 320, I'd be like, all right, cool. Boone. I whatever. But also, you can use that to your advantage, because if he's hitting 320, and again, this is just if he's not, make that very clear. Actually, let's just, for argument's sake, let's just say Narvaez is hitting very well. Then you mix and match them at catcher, and one of them DHs, or one of them plays first, which they both have first base on their resume. Okay. Austin Wells takes grounders at first just about every single pregame. Why people don't even acknowledge that. Austin Wells takes grounders at first almost like before every single game. He's been doing it all year.
Yeah. And by the way, how about the point you brought up before the show that why didn't Austin Wells play game 2?
I guess
Cole. Kind of to answer the question, because I guess I kind of see it, is would it be better, and I would argue it probably would be, to play your game earlier in the day and then you're not playing game 2 and then you have the 10 a.m. game tomorrow, or would you rather play the later game and then play the early morning game again? So the Yankees probably said we would rather have him catch Gerrit Cole, but the game times don't really make any sense. So I will say this. We talk everything out on this show. I will say I can see why that makes more sense. Like I can picture that. I get it. That right there is at least some type of, at least there's some thought there as to why that happened.
No, I get that. And I mean, talk about Rodon. He just had his 13th win. Yes, he had Wells catching. So that was, kind of a benefit there. His ERA is now down to 4.18, which is good, considering where it was. He's been great since the All-Star break. He pitched 110. He threw 110 pitches. Marinaccio came in because he was dubbed the 27th man. You get an extra guy when you do a doubleheader. Obviously.
Was Gerrit Cole in a pitch count that I didn't know about?
We're going to get to that. So Marinaccio pitched very well. Gary, in Yankee fashion, he was sent down after this. 2 1/3 inning, 1 hit, 3 strikeouts. He's got a 2.53 ERA. Meanwhile, Tim Hill, who didn't give up a run, he only gave up a hit, whatever, in 1 inning. He has a 4.43 ERA.
And he helped his ERA and got to that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, Marinaccio's ERA is what a reliever, a high leverage reliever should be at. Like guys that, are in the 3s. I don't even know how they're up in Marinaccio. Like Marinaccio should be on this roster. And Michael Tonkin, in my opinion, is pitching himself off this roster. He's had some high leverage opportunities. He's had his moments. But if we're being honest here, Tonkin gave up 3 runs today in the second game. He's got a 3.38 ERA. Okay. That was low at one point. Luke Weaver's is now up to 3.50. Now, Luke Weaver's been pretty good this year for the most part. He's actually been really good. And as of late, even, he's been pretty good. So this was just a blow up outing. But I think what we really need to touch on before we get into Gerrit Cole, because we have a lot of thoughts about taking a guy out with 90 pitches who has 10 strikeouts and hasn't even, he gave up 1 run and you just got a guy out.
It's painful.
We have a lot of, but I want to bring this up. Canely is the best pitcher right now in their bullpen. He has a 1.95 ERA. His changeup cannot be hit. He's pretty much unhittable at this point. Had another inning. I don't know why they used him, but he had another inning where he gave up nothing. He probably won't be available for tomorrow, earlier game. Mark Leiter Jr., who you brought up, was like, why the hell is he pitching in a meaningless game at this point since it was over?
It was 9-1.
He's not probably going to be available. But the reason I bring these guys up is we're talking about Marinaccio, Mark Leiter Jr., who has been really good with the Yankees, I would say. Canely, who's been phenomenal as of late. Clay Holmes has pitched well as of late. Luke Weaver has pitched well aside from this game. Tonkin's kind of fallen off a little bit as of late. There aren't many spots, and we've touched on this, Gary. In October, there are not many spots on that postseason roster. If you go and say, okay, we'll carry 13-13 or 14-12, right? There are 7 starting pitchers that are going to be part of those 13 or 14. That means there are only 7 relievers that you can choose, or 6 if they, choose to split it down the line and have 13-13. I bring this up because, we talked about before, but it's really starting to take shape. I mean, Luke Weaver, that was just a blow up, right? We haven't really ever seen him look that bad this year. So I'm not going to say that is who he is. But like Tonkin coming in and doing what he did and giving up 3 runs and 5 hits, like he won't make the team. I hope people understand that. He won't be on the postseason roster if he doesn't.
Do you remember what I said about Tonkin?
You said they didn't want him pitching in a high leverage situation in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's a huge difference. And I want to make sure that I'm heard here. There's a huge difference between being a successful regular season guy and Matt Blake, our pitching coach, getting the most out of you during the regular season that helps us win a division. There's a big difference between doing that and me trusting in what you've done over the regular season and then leveraging that job you did and putting you in a high leverage situation in October. It's a huge difference. There's a big difference between Derek Jeter taking a bat in game 111 of the season and hitting a walk-off versus putting trust in him to do it in game 6 of a World Series. Now, for a player of that caliber, I do trust him, but you really have to look at a player's talent and also their pedigree of what they've done in the past. Michael Tonkin's done nothing. in his career?
No.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
He's the reclamation project.
He is a reclamation project. So for the Yankees to think, and I'm not saying they think this, but it should be clear to everybody that you can get a high output out of a player in the regular season against regular season opponents, right? Bad teams, good teams, everything in between. And still you look at those numbers and say, wow, he's done a really nice job, while simultaneously believing this guy has no opportunity at all to go face Shohei Ohtani or a Ronald Acuna Jr. in a postseason series. I don't trust that. Now, like I told you before with Leiter Jr., I see what they see in this kid, right? I do. In large part because this isn't the first time he's ever done it, okay? He was still a good pitcher in Chicago. So this is not a player who didn't understand how to pitch, and then Matt Blake got a hold of him. We're like, yeah, he's pitched to a 150 ERA, which he has, and then say, all right, he's the closer of the Yankees. No, you still need to look into his past and say, okay, what's this player done? So like I told you before, all those players that have given us an output, they need to have some form of pedigree for me to put any trust in them. And there are a lot of guys on this Yankees roster where they might be giving us something, but in October, I'm going towards the usual suspects. Guys who have actually given us something before, I'm looking their way before I look at Michael Tonkin, who potentially could turn it back on and be the version he was a month ago. But even if he does do that, do I want Michael Tonkin taking the mound in game 1 of a ALDS? Jake, not really.
No, not at all. I will say David Robertson kind of closed this game out. Not actually a close. You know, he didn't get a save, but watching Robertson, I have to ask myself, like, why did they not trade for him? Like and then
I had not going for it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they would go after him, and I thought they'd go after Chad Green, who I wasn't that thrilled about, but Chad Green would have really helped. I do think, even though they got 2 relievers, like, I don't know if De Los Santos is going to make this team. I think he has the potential to, but I don't know if he's going to make. I know Mark Leiter Jr., if he is healthy, will be on that postseason roster. That was a priority move that they made, knowing he had that forkball that they really found to be, he's going to miss bats, he's going to get strikeouts. Mark Leiter Jr. was somebody they had really pinpointed as the guy that they wanted, and they liked De Los Santos, but I saw De Los Santos as more of a reclamation project, a guy he had good strikeout stuff. If we can get him to stop giving up the long ball, would go a long way. Canely, they knew everything about. Canely's been in this organization. He was drafted by the Yankees. I mean, they know Canely. So I just feel like, Canely, Holmes, Leiter, right? Weaver will probably be on that postseason. He's pitched really well this year. So that's 4, Gary. That's 4 guys.
And I think you said about 6
or 7. So who are the other 3? Because you cannot tell me that Clark Schmidt's not making this, Cody Poteet's not making this, Nestor Cortez, Marcus Stroman, all 7 starters, regardless of how you feel about them, all 7 starters will be on this postseason roster, without a doubt. That includes Nestor.
So Nestor Cortez, I mean,
that includes Nestor.
I guess Nestor Cortez still will be. So this is the thing. If we do what you said that they might do, which is you were hoping that they can go to a 3-man rotation, which is essentially you saying our depth is just not where it should be, right? Now,
I think I would go with a 4. I'd have Schmidt as the 4.
Right.
I think I'd want Rodon, because I'd want Rodon kind of hiding heel. I'd want you to have to face heel game 3.
Which is fine. So essentially what Nestor Cortez's job would be, because when we say we throw him to the bullpen, we're not saying, hey, we need to get 3 outs here, let's go to Nestor Cortez. No. If the Yankees were losing, because this happens in a postseason run, even for teams that win the World Series, there's going to be a time in the postseason where your team is sitting in the 5th inning, you're down 6-2, and your starter's just out the game immediately. Okay. And you need guys to just go out there and get outs without just totally burning the bullpen. Guys like Nestor Cortez, that's their job.
Yeah.
That would be his role. Okay. And I would be perfectly okay
finish the game.
just finish the game. Just go out there and throw. You're going to give us 4 innings. Just finish out this game. You're going to give up 3 runs, maybe more, and that's your job.
Yeah.
You didn't get outs as a starter. We damn sure don't expect you to get outs against the other team's best offensive players in like the 7 through 9 innings. I mean, that's the last time you'd want to see Nestor Cortez. So when people say throw guys to the bullpen, no, we're throwing you to the bullpen to be a long reliever while we're already losing.
No, I agree with that. And before we pivot to Gerrit Cole, that'll be a good way to wrap up the show, because I was furious. Gary, I was furious. Before we pivot to that, though, I do want to say one more time, I better not see Luis Seal in the bullpen. I will flip. I don't want to hear about, well, you could have an opener and he pitches 2 innings and Heel comes in. Why is Heel not starting then? Why would I have the opener come in, give up 2 runs, and put Heel in a 2-0 deficit right out of the gate? Why would I mess with anything Heel's doing? Heel has shown he can be an ace level pitcher. We know that. Heel's also shown all of his starts this year have come from the first inning. He has not come out of the bullpen. Why do people act like, oh, this would be a fun idea, this would work? Like, these same people that want that get pissed off at us. I'm not saying you guys, but there are people out there on Twitter and what have you. It doesn't exist, but still. There are people out there that get mad when we suggest Aaron Judge as a first baseman. We're doing that with data that supports it. I mean, we have so much data to back it up. The precedent has been set for years. If an outfielder at any point starts to go downhill with athleticism, injury concerns, getting up there in age, they'll move to first base. It's not unheard of. It happens all the time. They're already doing it with Bryce Harper in Philly. That's the number one example, okay? But those same people that say that's insane, you can't do that, whatever, those are the same people that are saying it makes sense to move a 25-year-old potential ace to the bullpen in Luis the playoffs.
Luis Heel to the bullpen, that's I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Luis Heel is a player that they're cool moving to the bullpen, and I would assume the reasoning is them saying he hasn't pitched this many innings. Is that accurate?
Well, that's the funny thing. So when Jim came on, he had mentioned that as an idea, and I think Bob also mentioned that as an idea. And I'm not hating on them, because when they said it, they had an actual explanation. To your point, they're talking about the innings thing. They're worried about his innings.
That's an explanation?
Well, no, but that's like rational. I understand your thinking. But there are people that hear this and then they regurgitate it. So like, just because some other Yankee show has talked about moving Heel to the bullpen for the October, they didn't, stick around to hear their reasoning, or the Yankee show didn't give them a reasoning.
Right.
Then they go on Twitter or they go in our comment section and they're like, Luis Heel to the bullpen. And it's like, but like, what's your reasoning for that? Because Gary,
was Luis Heel a reliever?
No, he's always been a starter.
Perfect. So let me stop you right there. If the Pittsburgh Pirates were in first place right now, who would be starting game 1?
Paul Skeens, and
let's
no ifs, ands, or buts.
Let's end it right then.
Best pitcher in baseball already.
He's the best pitcher in baseball. Paul Skeens has thrown 86 innings. So would anybody be asking the question, should we just make Paul Skeens this super closer? Let me just stop you right there. No one would think. And of course, these are 2 players on totally different levels. We get it. Paul Skeens is a future Hall of Famer if he stays healthy. Totally
well, Gary, they know Mason Miller. Oh, look how good he is as a closer. Yeah, but Mason Miller's value is a lot less because he only pitches 1 inning. But at the same time, to be fair, I have said multiple times in the show, you're only as good as your closer. So that's why he has a ton of value. But would Mason Miller be more valuable if he could pitch 6 innings, 7 innings a game? Absolutely.
That's why the Giants move what's-his-face into the rotation. Otherwise, they just have him close.
Jordan Hicks.
You just moved Jordan Hicks. They didn't sign him to a $40 million
our
deal.
friend Jordan Hicks. I haven't seen.
They didn't sign him to a $40 million contract so they can throw him at closer. They decided we're getting more value from you if you're in the rotation. Paul Skeens is a player. He's never thrown more than 86 innings in his big league career. It's never happened. You know why? Because he's a rookie. Would the Pirates ever sit there and say, yeah, let's move him to the bullpen? Because he's never done this before. No, he's a starting pitcher in college at LSU. He was dominant. He went into the minor leagues. He basically just avalanched the minor leagues and then gets to the big leagues. Is anybody going to talk about the injury risk? No, because this is sports. You just play. If you end up getting hurt, we deal with it later. Like, if there's a situation that imminently we need to take care of it, otherwise, like, you're going to get hurt, then by all means. But don't tell me that this is really the same conversation of allowing a pitcher to go to 100 pitches. Or do you always pull them before 100 pitches? Are you always doing things to maximize health, or are you trying to maximize wins? And in these situations where people tell me, Luis Gil, we're going to consider putting him at catcher, in my mind, you're just putting health way ahead of winning. And frankly, when you haven't won a World Series in 15 years, it's all hands on deck. We have to stop worrying about how this could affect the organization or the player 3 or 4 years down the road. You guys really have to start honing in on what this is doing to the big league team this year. There's just too much of this going on.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good segue, which is why I brought it up for the Gerrit Cole thing. Because essentially, if you're putting Gil in the bullpen, you're babying him. There's no other way to put it. And I think this league is full of babying. By the way, before I say it, Jordan Hicks did not work as a starter. They've already moved him back into the bullpen. So, Anyway, moving on. The point I'm making is that there's a lot of babying in this league, and a lot of it stems from analytics. And look, there's a lot of truth to what they do. There's a lot of reasoning behind it. Gary has brought up multiple times in the show how the average velocity for a pitcher has gone up by 3 miles per hour in like no time at all. But
ridiculous.
And that is. But at the same time, Walter Johnson and Cy Young and all, they were pitching every game back in the day, right? Pitching every game back in the day. They're, however many starts, they're pitching the entire game. Okay. So I don't know how we went from pitchers pitched the entire game, they pitched every single game, to now pitchers can't even get through 4 innings. It's all about the pitch count. You know what it was? I swear to you, this was the tipping point. I've brought it up before, I think. When Edwin Jackson had his no-hitter for the Diamondbacks and he threw 150 pitches.
Okay.
It was like after that, everyone was focused on pitch count because Edwin Jackson was never the same player after that. Not to say
I think I know why everyone's getting hurt. And I rarely ever will I get on this show and just tell you guys, I know why something's occurring, especially when it's so controversial, like player injuries, especially pitchers. This is my take on why pitchers continuously get hurt. And it seems like they're getting hurt more when we're being more careful with them. Okay. This is what I think, Jake. When you have a player like Gerrit Cole, okay, and they continuously, he's never had a major injury his entire life, right? This is the first year he's ever had anything happen. Now, Gerrit Cole's a player where they say, okay, well, we're going to baby him. That's the reason we're babying him is because of his injuries earlier this year and him getting sick. But for guys like Luis Gil, I've always had the opinion that players are getting hurt more now because they're maximizing velocity. And this is something that I think today's players think that they understand in order to maximize velocity, that's going to help me, right? It's going to help me be a better pitcher. But guys in the past could have thrown just a little bit harder. Obviously, not as hard as the guys today, but when you see a guy, let's use Andy Pettitte as a perfect example. Andy Pettitte threw about 93, 94 miles an hour, right? He wasn't going to throw 100 miles an hour. But don't you know Andy Pettitte could have thrown 95. He could have thrown 96. Not 100, but 95. Now, that's not going to help Andy Pettitte stay on the field. So I think right now, based on the way starting pitchers are treated, I think pitchers are perfectly okay maxing out and just accepting they're not going length because it's not being asked of them. If they were being asked to go at length, these pitchers would try and dial it back and stay within themselves. Instead of being a 98 to 99 mile an hour guy, you're throwing 96, 95, and you're trying to locate. But you've got so many guys in the big leagues today trying to light up the radar gun. You see Carlos Rodon throw a ball up. He looks up at the scoreboard. Everyone's wondering what he's looking at. He's looking at the scoreboard to see how hard he's throwing. That's what we're doing. So if you want to know why guys are getting hurt, there's your answer right there. Guys are excited to throw 100. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. Let me put my hand up and take some responsibility here, Jake. Earlier this year, do you remember what we said the most important thing about Canley and Carlos Rodon? Do you remember what we were saying about their fastball?
Velocity.
Man, he doesn't have his 99 like he used to. Carlos Rodon in the third inning, first inning, he had 100. Remember, we saw the radar gun light up 100 with the flames, and then we got to the third inning, he was sitting 94. Yes Network was talking about his velocity going off of a cliff, and then he was talking about his velocity in the postgame. Yeah, no, that was intended. Remember that? You remember those conversations? My velocity dip was intended. And then, sure enough, 2-3 weeks go by, we kind of stopped talking about it. And next thing you know, we're seeing 98 to 99 pretty consistently. And we just assumed, oh, because we're seeing 99, everything's great. That's the way baseball's coached. It's the way these guys are attempting to be. So, Jake, when you see guys getting hurt left and right, they're trying to throw hard. They're trying to spin the ball as hard as they can. They have no intention on throwing 200 innings. Like those guys like Corbin Burns and Gerrit Cole, they're so far and few between. Like you rarely ever see guys with that approach. They're perfectly fine going and giving you like a Blake Snell season where you throw 139 innings, you strike out 190, right? A Robbie Ray. Go out there and throw as hard as you can, strike out as many guys as you can, get a big contract, and then your arm explodes. We'll see you in 2 years. That's the way that these guys are being coached. And I know they're not intending to be hurt. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But what's being asked of them is to go max velocity, max spin, max strikeout, and to hell with next year. They're worried about tonight. And it's tough to watch. It really is.
It is, because part of baseball is the entertainment. I mean, just like any sport, you know? So they are entertainers. They want to entertain. Aroldis Chapman threw 105 back-to-back pitches, and I think it was against Manny Machado, and he was just like he couldn't even believe it.
Certain guys can do that, though. That's the thing, is 105 isn't the devil. It's still cool to throw 104, but only a certain
Chapman's
few players
been doing it for years. What you're saying is guys that are essentially like how we just talked about, you know, Jordan Hicks, how he was stretched into a starter. These guys are stretching out their velocity. So guys that, like you said, back in the day, they'd be fine pitching 92 to 95. Now those same guys in the year of 2024 are trying to stretch out. Really, they should only be pitching 92 to 95. Now they're throwing 100. So
they're trying to. And those same physical specimens that really should be sitting 95, as you said, they are quite literally throwing 100. And then asking the question of, modern medicine is improved, why aren't these guys able to stay on the field? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would also say velocity is overrated. And the reason I'd say that is go back to the Anthony Volpe at bat against Clase. Okay. If Clase throws 103 and your average swing speed is at least 89, that shit is going to be a rocket off the bat. Now you factor in Aaron Judge's average swing speed, that shit's gone, like, easily.
I get it. I wouldn't agree with that, just from a standpoint of, I understand velocity makes it harder to hit, just from a simple standpoint of, yes, you make contact.
I mean, it does, but do you have any run on your fastball? You know, is it just a plain dart? Most
guys, though, that have high velocity in today's game, they don't reach the big leagues if they don't have any run, or like they don't have a lot of run. Most of these guys are just straight up nasty, but the problem resides because they're a guy who should have nasty run at 95, 96, and they are manipulating their body to the point where they are throwing 101. Now, it's okay to throw 101 miles an hour, but Are you that upper echelon physical specimen, or are you some 5'9" dude that's chucking? And that's what you're seeing when you talk about some of the game's hardest throwers. Aroldis Chapman, I've stood right next to Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman looks like a damn personal trainer. He's ripped, absolutely shredded. I don't know if you guys have seen
threw
him.
100, his arm would come off with the ball.
Yeah, he looked like Mr. Potato Head. It would just go right with the ball. And that's what people don't understand is certain guys with certain builds and certain bodies need to do certain things. If I look at Mason Miller, I say Mason Miller, before he ever throws the ball, you say, okay, he kind of looks like Nolan Ryan. That's interesting. And then all of a sudden the ball comes out like a damn cannon. And you say, oh, okay, yeah, there's their Nolan Ryan. Great. But then you watch Luke Weaver get out on a mound and you say, my wife the other day, she goes, yeah, he looks 12. Who's this kid? And mind you, he looks like a young kid. Yeah, he's a young kid. Goes out there, here's 99 miles an hour for Luke Weaver. And it's cool. It's great stuff. But you can't ask why guys are getting hurt when dudes who I'm 5'10", a $165, a dude my build's throwing 99 miles an hour, and you have the audacity to ask us why he can't last 12 years in the big leagues. Why would he?
Gary, do you know how old Luke Weaver is?
Luke Weaver, I'm going to say is he 26?
30. He's a young kid. No, he's your same age.
No, dude, this dude was a frequent shopper at Blockbuster.
Oh my,
that's incredible. Yeah, no, and he looks like a little kid, which is fine. I mean, he's being forced to shave. I get it. A lot of us look young if we.
No, I would never play for the Yankees. I need at least
stupid
something.
Policy.
Yeah,
stupid policy. But the whole point I'm making here, and then we'll dive into the Gerrit Cole situation, is that guys that are supposed to be throwing 93, they're throwing 96 and then questioning modern medicine. No, there's nothing to question. You're revving it up, right? You're redlining your vehicle, and then you're wondering why it doesn't last you like a Toyota Camry. No, you're burning this thing out. That's what's happening.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Perfectly explained. Doesn't mean we're happy about it. I mean, obviously we hope everybody, doesn't get hurt and all that, but that's what happens when you stretch yourself and, you try to go all, Super Saiyan and push yourself to your limits, and all of a sudden your arm comes off with the baseball. So yeah. Gerrit Cole. Okay. I understand, he had the general body fatigue, that the memes that came with that were something else. Gary, you obviously were part of that. But anyway, the general body fatigue, I get that. He moves his start. I thought he was pretty good in his last start. He started off slow, and then, we talked about that. He looked really good. This start, I thought he looked really good. I just wish he'd just stop throwing the cutter, if I'm being honest with you. He throws it all the time, and it just gets mashed. All 6 of his hits, I believe, came off the cutter. So, yeah, I wish he'd stop doing that. But aside from that, Gerrit Cole looked like Gerrit Cole. The knuckle curve looked great. The fastball, the run on his fastball, he was hitting his locations. Now, he had a little miscommunication with Narvaez. That's to be expected. First time they ever worked together. But I was really impressed with Gerrit Cole. Why in God's green earth in a 1-1 game, he has 90 pitches. He just got an out. Okay. He has 90 pitches and they take him out. There's nobody on. He didn't just get hit hard. He just got it out. I believe it was a strikeout, actually. I think it was a strikeout. That was the last batter he faced, was a strikeout in the 6th inning. Okay. So he gave up the run. Adolis Garcia he singled to left. He scored Langford in the 4th inning. That was the only run he gave up. Okay. 6th inning, gets the strikeout. They take him out. They put in Luke Weaver. Now, we've already said Luke Weaver is a good pitcher. He's had a good year, and this is a blow up, appearance. That happens. But yes, while it was on Weaver, Gerrit Cole shouldn't have come out of the game. And I'll say this. People were saying, well, Gerrit Cole is on a pitch count. We have not heard that he's on a pitch count. That was not mentioned by the Yes broadcast. That was not mentioned by Jack Curry. That was not mentioned by Bob Lorenz. Okay. No one mentioned the pitch count. So we don't know that. So you're just saying something because you're trying to essentially come up with a conclusion to something you don't understand, but it's okay to not understand. We don't have to come up with random conclusions. We don't know. So I'm going to say there isn't a pitch count. I think Boone just made a bad managerial decision. He decided, let's take Cole out on a high note, just got a strikeout. I don't give a rip about a high note. I want him in there until he really looks like he's done. Okay.
Yeah, is Luke Weaver a better pitcher fresh?
No.
Than Gerrit Cole after 5 1/3 and 10 Ks with 2 walks? No.
And
the answer is no.
I give Boone credit in the previous game because he left Rodon in there for 110 pitches. And he left Marinaccio in there for 32 pitches. Okay. But like, why in this game did he yeah, that was a great thing that I did in the last game, but he's going to go away from that in this one. Gerrit Cole pitched better than Rodon. He had 10 strikeouts. He only had 2 walks.
This was reminiscent also of
it was so frustrating when he did that. I was livid because I knew right then and there they were going to lose. The vibes were off. When Luke Weaver came in, he misses 2 up high. He walks 1 guy. He gets smacked around. Bases loaded. Gary, 4-pitch walk to give him a run to take the lead. And we're thinking, yeah, that's bad. And people are getting on Jazz Chisholm because he didn't tag third. Well, that wouldn't have mattered because Luke Weaver ends up giving up a home run anyway to Corey Seager's first ever at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, because like you said, Luke Weaver's a good arm.
Yeah.
But you don't put a good arm on the mound if you have a better one.
No.
Already on the mound. That's what happened. So you can say all day long, and I'll say this. When you bring a pitcher off the field and you don't pass the baton correctly from your starter to your first reliever out there who touches the mound, when you do that incorrectly, usually baseball comes back to haunt you. Usually. And most often when we pay attention to this is in the postseason, but this is the Yankees. So we pay attention to it in game 126. That's just the job here, right?
Yeah.
We pay attention to all these moves. But managers all over the place make these type of errors. And what bothers me about this situation is not necessarily just the error in judgment in this one situation, but the inconsistency. That's what drives me insane, because earlier this year when we talked about some of the things, not all, because there were things that we still complained about with Aaron Boone, but really the majority of what we said that he was doing well was managing the starting rotation and deciding to squeeze the lemon and get the most out of what guys were offering that night. If a starting pitcher had his stuff, you gave him the leash to go out there and finish, in this case, would be in the 6th inning, right? Giving a starting pitcher that opportunity to finish his start. And it helps the bullpen as you go. But considering Aaron Boone was doing that well earlier in the season, and then he fast forwards to today, right? We're talking about August now. These are really important games. You've forced Weaver, Tonkin, Leiter Jr., and Canley to go out there and pitch well. Every single one of those guys. For you to tell me you're going to go win with that many guys touching the mound, what you would prefer is to have one less name up there.
Yeah.
One less name. Would I rather have Weaver, Tonkin, Leiter Jr., Canley, or Gerrit Cole pitching? Obviously, it's Gerrit Cole. Now, if Gerrit Cole is clearly laboring and he's just not getting through the inning, I would totally understand where you're coming from, because an exhausted Gerrit Cole isn't really Gerrit Cole at all. But Gerrit Cole wasn't exhausted. It's not like he was out there laboring. These weren't high stress pitches. So there was no reason for this to happen. Now, obviously we go out there and lose 9-4, but that's after we kind of mucked up the game in the 6th inning. So that's where my frustration resides. I just thought there was an inconsistency with how we apply these rules to different pitchers. Marcus Stroman, at the first month of the season, you can squeeze that extra inning out of him. But Gerrit Cole, who we pay $360 million to, you just can't trust it, because we're going to sit here and say, well, I mean, he was sick a couple weeks ago. We're trying to build him up. At some point or another, we can't talk about building guys up. We have got to put the best guys on the field because these games matter now. We're talking about 40-some games left in the season.
I think it's disrespectful to the Rangers to just assume you're going to just put in Luke Weaver and you're good.
They just think, well, this was the next best option we had. But like I've always said, when you don't have a track record of winning the World Series or really even getting close, you don't get to play the safe card with all these players. You don't get to put one guy behind bubble wrap and then get him off his feet, get Austin Wells off the field and make sure he's rested for 10 a.m. game tomorrow, get Gerrit Cole off the field. He's at 90 pitches and Weaver's still spinning it well. So let's put him out there. You don't get to make all these safe decisions and then expect you're going to go win the division against a good Baltimore team and then expect that you're just going to go out there and win in October when you can't win at home right now.
Yeah,
so the Yankees shouldn't be taking any shortcuts, and I thought that was a shortcut right there. I didn't like it at all.
I didn't like it at all. I think it costs them the game. I mean, we'll never know for sure if they, if there's an alternate reality that they win. But I want to wrap it up with this, Gary. I'm going to say this: top of the fourth. Okay, you had Garcia with the single that scored the run. Cole after that settled down. You want to know how he settled down? These were his last. So all the way to his last batter, which by the way was not a strikeout. It was a pop out to first.
Okay.
Really hard contact should take him right out of the game right away. Anyway, this is what Gerrit Cole did. This is why people are upset with Aaron Boone for taking out Gerrit Cole. So after he gave up the run in the fourth inning, strikeout in 4 pitches, strikeout in 5 pitches, strikeout in 3 pitches. Fifth inning, he has Seager grounds out to second and 2, strikes out Simeon in 4, strikes out Jung in 5. Sixth inning, a pop out to first, foul to first in 3 pitches.
Low stress.
No stress whatsoever. It's like after he gave up the run, which by the way, like that wasn't really even that bad. Like the run scored, but I mean, it wasn't like he got crushed on that hit, but he really settled down. I mean, he was locked and loaded, and it bothers me because if we're talking about Rodon, that's an 8-9 pitch count, right? Rodon works himself into trouble with the deep counts. Even when he pitches well, he gets into a lot of 3-2 counts. Gerrit Cole had all of these under 5. He had one that I think hit 6 pitches. That was across 3 innings of work. So my point is, Gerrit Cole did not just get blasted. There was not just a home run over the wall. There was not just a rocket line drive that Giancarlo Stanton would even approve of. No, it was a pop out foul ball to the first baseman. And that was like, Boone was like, you know what? That's it. Why even send him out there to pitch in the 6th inning? I mean, that's how I felt. That's why I was upset, because I'm like, you put him out there, you're like, yeah, just go out and get that one batter. And he only pitches 3 times. I got to tell you, I think pitch count is very overrated. A day-to-day pitch count is overrated. Over the year, now you start to, if you combine all the pitches being thrown in innings, I think innings matter. Like, Gary, we've talked about that. I think innings over the course of a year mean more than just like week-to-week pitch count.
Yeah, and I don't even think he came out because of pitch count. I actually think he came out because Aaron Boone thought, well, Gerrit Cole's struggling. He's kind of teetering on the right direction, and they were afraid to let him go out there and ruin the end of his start. So I think they pulled him before that could happen. And that's just not the way that this works.
No, he didn't have any signs of that. None.
No, this is a grown man. Gerrit Cole should be able to deal with this, and he can. He's proven that he can. So I think that's what happened. They put in Weaver. They said, okay, Gerrit Cole, he got these outs. Fantastic. We got what we needed today out of Gerrit Cole instead of worrying about what was left to get today. And they
dominated the heart of the order, and they're like, all right, now that the bottom of the order is coming up, we got to take our ace out. So
that's what happened.
Weaver, low singles to right, Garcia singles to center, Tavares singles to right, Kelly walked, scores a run. Smith hits a sacrifice fly. Seager hits the home run. Now all of a sudden it's 6-1. A game that your ace just threw 10 strikeouts in a season where he has not at any point really looked like himself. And he finally looked like himself on just a massive scale. You get 10 strikeouts out of him, and you're down 6-1 in an inning that started 1-1.
Here's the funniest part. Here's by far the funniest part of all this. Tomorrow's starter's Marcus Stroman, who's given up 6 innings his last 2 starts. Total. So you're expecting, by definition, to have to use your bullpen tomorrow. Now, obviously, we're hoping Marcus Stroman, for some other reason, can turn the tide, but your expectations shouldn't be that that's going to happen. You have to prepare your bullpen for tomorrow's work, which is probably 5 innings of work. So having said that,
against Andrew Heaney.
You're going to do that by pulling your starter early and then bringing out guys out your bullpen. I mean, you can say all day long that Aaron Boone's preparing for tomorrow's game today and how it hurt today's game. How about ruining today's game and also ruining tomorrow as well? Like, how about that? Not that yeoman's work that he's doing. That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. So if Marcus Stroman goes out there and it's inning number 4 tomorrow, inning number 3, and he's given up 4 runs, and then you're seeing the Yankees bullpen stirring, well, what am I supposed to sell here? What am I supposed to tell you guys? This is just not being prepared to play baseball games. It's a 10 a.m. game tomorrow. It's a quick turnaround. So if Leiter Jr. is throwing tomorrow, I mean, that would be a shock to me.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't see it. I think they have, I mean, we know they have homes available. De Los Santos. That's it, right? I mean, everybody else pitched. That's it. Tim Hill pitched. Now, of course, they're going to have a guy pitching on, back to back, but because they'd have to, because they don't have enough arms. But that's wild. That's mismanagement on that end. But
I have a great movie, by the way. Since again, we got another really nice.
You gotta have a great movie with a bad ending.
Okay, so something that was elite, that had the worst ending ever. I mean, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you immediately thought Game of Thrones. I'm going to go Dexter. Okay. Dexter. If best show ever, obviously not the best show ever, but incredible show. Worst ending ever possible. Dude goes off he essentially goes off into the storm. We don't even see if he died or if he lived. Completely stupid story. So we're going Dexter.
Wow. You just spoiled it for everybody.
If you haven't seen Dexter, that show's been out for 12 years at least. Yeah, that's on you.
So you're gonna have all these people typing Dexter in our comment section. People are gonna be like, Dexter's Laboratory.
at least that's showing their age. At least we got people our age. I watched Dexter's Lab.
Yeah.
So no, but we're going Dexter, the murder show. Great show. Yeah. Awful ending. Pretty good microcosm to today's doubleheader.
I like it. What were you gonna say before? I feel like I totally.
Are you kidding me? You're talking to a goldfish of a co-host. I have no clue what I was going to say.
You're like, this is a great movie. And then they're like, all right, Dexter. Well, that's going to do it. So yeah, type Dexter in if you got to this point. One of our longer shows in a while. We've kept them shorter, but we had a lot we wanted to say. A lot. Yeah.
So YouTube's going to crucify us too, because tomorrow is 10 a.m. game.
Good Lord.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this works out.
Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully YouTube, gets this up quick and I don't have to wait 2 hours. I don't miss those days, Gary. I do not miss those days. A lot of people don't realize, but it used to take 3 hours, 2 hours to even process the video. I don't know why. We got big enough to the point where YouTube gave us, I guess, a little bit of priority. So now they don't take that long, but who knows? So anyway, we appreciate you guys sticking along with us. Drop Dexter in the comment section to let us know that you stuck around this long. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully Marcus Stroman can take down Andrew Heaney in a battle of the Titans tomorrow, 1:35 Eastern time. Yankees Rangers in the rubber match of this 3-game set.
And like this video.